I cannot emphasize this enough, that finding a different routine in the morning and not popping on and giving someone else the key to the tone set for your morning, again, has never been more critical.
My good, great friend, Sarah Johnson, with me. You probably know her from Balance Like a Pirate, which I just realized now somehow that you're rocking the shirt. That's or your sweatshirt, the hoodie. That's great. You got up super early for me, or for all of us, really, and I appreciate that a lot. Did you already run this morning?
I did not.
You did not. So you're gonna you run after. I was like, well, maybe she's not up that early because maybe she already got up and run. So anyway. This is our daily drop-in for, I think today is Wednesday, April 1st, correct?
Correct.
And we are dropping in. I am bringing my phone up so that I can watch for your comments and everything going on. So give me a second on that because I just apparently stopped doing that. But this is our daily drop-in. We're dropping in every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, which is 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. Central Time. We are here. This is 100% for you, for support for anyone who needs it. I'm not going to lie. I think a lot of it is support for us as well, and us to hang out and talk. But we're here for you. So I see some people jumping in. Good morning, Megan. Good morning, Alex. Good morning, Heller. Mark Heller. Someone else said good morning that didn't pop up, and I'm waiting for my drop in here. Here we are. Now I can hear myself, so that's good. That was Brianne up top. Hi, Brianne. Good morning. So I'll be watching for your comments and everything like that. Just to touch really quick, these drop-ins are here live every morning. They do get saved in our videos. So if you're in our private group, you can go to videos and watch any of the backlog ones. There's some really awesome value in all of the ones that we've done. If you're listening on Teach Better Talk podcast, the best way to interact with us right now is to be in the Facebook group so that you can interact. Obviously, if you're listening right now, you're hearing this after we've recorded it. So make sure you get into the Facebook group over at teachbettergroup.com or Facebook and search Teach Better Team and get in there. And then you can comment on future ones. So anyway, Brianne says, it was me, Brie. I don't know why, Brianne, but I totally pictured you saying that like Mario. Like, hey, it's me, Mario. I don't know, in the games. Anyway, she's been looking forward to these morning meetings. What's that?
I was just singing the Mario song for you.
Do we need to take a minute? Do you want to get a whole like verse in?
Okay.
If you think for 1 second that that's not going to be used in a whole bunch of other places over the next 8 years, you're wrong. So anyway, Sarah, super excited to have you on. I think a lot of people do know you, but for those that don't know you and aren't aware of who you are and your experience stuff, would you mind just sort of sharing us, like, what you do, sort of your story in education, and maybe how they can connect with you right now as well?
Oh, sounds good. So yes, I am Sarah Johnson. I am in Wisconsin with my lovely Wisconsin State love here. So I have been a classroom teacher at the 6th through 12th grade levels, and I always love sharing that I didn't actually have my classroom. I had a cart for the first 2 years. So I was a rock star like that. And then I eventually got into principal. And so I was an elementary, middle, and high school principal. And for the last 2 years, I have been consulting, speaking, just doing a beautiful mishmash of things. One of my favorite things I do is an adjunct professor. So I get to teach people who are wanting to be in titled roles a little bit about leadership and specifically the principalship. I supervise student teachers. I'm an author. And so there's just a lot of really cool things that I get to do. In the last 2 years, I've just really seen a lot more than I ever had before. I'm a leadership coach for Jimmy Casas and Associates. So that's been a really big joy. And right now, I, like many of you, am trying to practice all that I preach. I'm married to a teacher, a high school teacher. And so we're experiencing in our home what that's looking like for switching to online learning without really a lot of, heads up. I have 2 daughters who are both trying to learn remotely as a 2nd grader and a 5th grader. And I'm also in the middle of my practicum for superintendency. So when everything started kind of rolling out, I was at the table with some of these discussions. And so I I don't know. I guess right now I'm bringing with me a bigger perspective than I thought I even had. That's what I got going on in this world.
Yeah, so let's there's a lot that we can dive into. I want to touch just because, so you got students in your house. You're also a student at the current time.
Yeah.
You're supporting, you work with and support a lot of teachers and a lot of admin, a lot of district leaders and school leaders. And then you also have a teacher in the house. So what are the conversations? I love to, not to put your husband on the spot, but he's not here. He can't tell. What are the things that, what are the, maybe the initial struggles or challenges that he was facing, and then have you guys overcome those? Have you figured out where, like, is he feeling better right now? That like, how far into it is he? Like, was spring break last week? I know for our district here in Ohio, like my kids' district last week was spring break. So like the week before we were closed, but it's sort of, we're figuring it out. Then we went on spring break, and then now everything's really rolling out from the teachers. They're doing a great job of helping direct us and stuff. Is he there yet? Are they still figuring it out, or?
So the interesting part, and okay, so we live in one district, and I have been serving as an interim, not an interim, sorry, a practicum superintendent in the local district. And it's really interesting. They're only 6 miles away, but I think I was more in the inner workings on one and then just watching it roll out on the other.
Mm-hmm.
Very different approaches. And so anyway, we did not have a spring break in the district that my husband teaches in. There was just going to be like a Friday, Monday for the Easter weekend. So they hit the ground running. And our governor in Wisconsin closed things up starting, I think, on the 17th. They did not have students on the 13th. So they spent their day preparing. They had time to do that-ish.
Yeah.
And so it all kind of started, I think we just got waves of communication. At first it was going to be Friday, that they were going to be closing on Tuesday. And then it was, oh, nope, we're closing on Monday kind of thing. So it's just been really interesting to watch that unfold. My husband has I love him so much. We just have very different personalities. And so it's been interesting to watch, because I'm thinking, well, this is how I would communicate as an admin, and it's cool. You just got to flow with things. But he is very much type A. I need the answers. I'm black and white. This is what I need to do. So just tell me what I need to do, and then I'll do it, kind of thing. So I think it's been so interesting to watch it all unfold for him. And they had their first Zoom staff meeting last week after 2 weeks, and anyway, I don't know. I can't really say that they're there. One of the big struggles we have is we're a very rural community, and so we have our lack of access for internet is real. I mean, we have teachers that can't get internet at their homes.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's really hard to say right now. They're tackling this idea about grades, and I think the most recent conversation is it looks like they're going to try to do pass fail, but that's the stuff that weighs in my husband's mind, is like, I haven't even heard from the students, so how am I going to fail them? It's just hard. So, but we're just, if maybe some of you are in the same boat, maybe you're further ahead. I'm connected, so I watch everything and I'm thinking things through, and I'm always like, hey, get on the Teach Better stuff, Joe. I'm always sending them your resources.
It's, you say that you're connected. Well, first I want to say good morning, Joe. Good morning, Veronica. Good morning, Adam. Mr. Smitto, nice to see you. And OMG, it's Sarah Johnson. That coming from Ray. I love all the work you do. The podcast, the perfect listening during my dog walks these days. Hi, Ray. Good morning. So it's interesting you say about connected. I was just having a conversation. I've been having a lot of conversations with people recently about my perspective as someone who is right now trying to support educators all over the country, doing whatever we can. And so I'm seeing, like you talk about just 6 miles apart and the differences, right? Like across country, like it's crazy the differences, because certain districts that maybe looked to be more prepared technology wise weren't as prepared for the way they've actually integrated or not. And those that maybe weren't are just moving quicker because they have someone that was just able to do it quicker, like that, for whatever reason. I'm trying to remember who it was that we had. Oh, it was Stacy Roshan was on our podcast. The episode hasn't come out, but she does a great she talks a little bit about how it's, a lot of people are turning to her because she's this tech, tech with heart, right? She's the tech person that everyone goes to. But she said, the problem is a lot of people think that people who are big on with ed tech were ready for this and we're like just can flow into it. But the problem is integrating technology into a classroom is not this is typically to enhance, right? To enhance an experience, to enhance a system, to make something more efficient. It's not necessarily to run everything. And now it has to be used to run everything too. And so it is still this big shift. And It's been really interesting as for me here locally. We have a great school district. I love our school district. Our teachers are amazing. My kids have had a great experience so far. My daughter's in kindergarten. My son's in second grade. Both their teachers are amazing. But it was interesting. Just they've had Google Classroom for a while. We've been one-to-one for a while, but most of the teachers have just never used it because it just wasn't. They just weren't to that point of integrating it into a classroom yet. So they're all learning too, and they're doing a great job. And the spring break definitely helped because I know they all worked during spring break getting things ready. But it's just interesting to see how different it is across. And I think it's really important for us to remember that everyone's struggling with at different levels with different things. And then you throw in the whole piece of like equity and being able to get the access to devices, to Wi-Fi, to stable Wi-Fi, to what the environment is at home or isn't, and just everything. It's just it's just nuts.
It is. And so while we're on it, what I wanted to say is just to angle in a few perspectives. I agree with you. Our teachers are amazing. Our staff, I mean, it's been so beautiful to watch my second grader just kind of go through this process of kind of grieving. And I want to get to that today if we can a little bit, but
Mhm.
this idea of grieving that she's not going to be able to hug her teacher, and yet her teacher gives her a hug by sending a remind message and naming every student's name. Good morning, for my daughter, she said, "Good morning, Adele," and then she just warms up, and it was super funny. I have to share this with all of you. The first time she heard was that first week, and she just kind of had this look on her face, and I could tell she was processing it. She goes, "I need a donut." I'm like, "Okay, we're not going to stress eat."
Boy,
That was how she was processing her grief. Like, this feels weird. I
yeah,
hear my teacher's voice. I miss her already.
I
I
need a
need a
donut.
donut. Yeah. But in true, I feel like I have a golden perspective that I am observing this veteran superintendent who is one of the best leaders I've been able to ever work with. And he and I have said often how fortunate I am to be watching this all unfold without the decision making
Mhm.
play there. And I have said that I've thanked my lucky stars. I said I'm super blessed. But here's what I want to say on behalf of the superintendents. You're right. Like, there is nobody getting this right or wrong right now from
Mhm.
any level of leadership, because from the classroom to the principals, veterans, you could be a first year, you could be in it for 30 years. You've never led through a pandemic before.
Yep.
You've had other crises and you've had other communication plans, but none of them ever have happened to anybody who's currently leading. And so that amount of grace that we need to have for one another is just so it's it's intensely needed right now, and I see that from a very local perspective. And so it's just something that, like, we feel always in systems
Mhm.
the burdens of those decisions, and we're feeling them ever more now.
Oh yeah.
But I feel for the people who are leading. I can see it, and so
Mhm.
let's just make sure that we're gentle and as kind as we can be
Yeah,
to those people too.
grace. I've heard that word grace there more than anything. I think right now, but I think you say it so well is that no one's doing this right or wrong.
Mm-mm.
Some people are doing it faster.
Yeah.
Some people are doing slower. Some people are doing it differently. But there's no right or wrong. Everyone's trying to doing the best they can with what they have or don't have, and with the problems that come up and stuff. I think it's really important for teachers to not only give themselves grace, obviously, give their students grace, give their parents grace, but also give your leaders grace too. And we've had a lot of people echoing that, so that's really, really important. Good morning, Tammy. Good morning, Kimberly. Good morning, Candace. Jeff Kaplan's on. Which this is a weird twist, but Kaplan's down by Atlanta, and it just reminded me, my oldest brother Paul, I'm the youngest of three. My oldest brother Paul is a doctor of physical therapy down at Grady Memorial in Atlanta. And if you know Lizzo, the R&B hip hop rap star, she bought them all dinner last night.
Oh wow.
She sent them a message via their Instagram thing, and let them know that she appreciates them, and bought the entire hospital food. And Paul said it was awesome. So shout out to Lizzo.
Thanks, Lizzo.
Like her music or not, she's a pretty cool person, and that was just kind of cool. I love seeing that little thing. She didn't really publicize it a lot, and anything, just people going out of the way to help do what they can. So I'm looking at some of the comments coming in. There's Chad. Good morning, Chad. Chad just echoing what we say, that he loves that no right or wrong, as long as we're moving forward and doing our best for kids. I agree that. So Ray wants me to sing some Lizzo. No. You already got Mario from Sarah. I don't think you're getting Lizzo. And you can, blame that on my juice. Anyway, so Sarah, you mentioned the grief part. And I don't want to go into a somber mode or anything like that, but it's something that we were talking about earlier, just sort of what this is doing for people who have other things happening that are causing grief and the difficulty right now of not being able to cope with each other because we're not able to hug, right? We're not able to put an arm around each other. We're not able to cry on our shoulder and stuff like that. I'm wondering if you have a message for anyone who may be dealing with like any sort of grief, whether it's just the current situation or the isolation getting to them, or an actual loss in their life or anything like that. I think you're just such a good person to speak to that.
Well, thank you. First of all, I just tweeted out this morning, Brene Brown had a podcast episode that came out this week. And so she's going to say it 1,000 times better than I ever could. But the timing for me was exceptional. And, one of the things I would say right now, and you said there's no better way to connect than podcasts. I agree. We have so many, you talk about the balance message. It's like, how do you keep it all going? I don't want to add and add. Well, pop on some podcasts while you're doing the dishes or doing your chores or something like that. I want to talk to this piece about grief, but I really highly recommend listening to that podcast episode because she talks about, and with a person who wrote a book on grief and making meaning through grief, about the fact that we're all in a collective grief right now. And it spoke to me. Ray just listened to it. It's so good. It really spoke to me. Personally, if you follow me on any social media, you've seen that I'm going through something personally right now that is challenging our capacity because, when I agreed to do this drop-in, I was so excited. I'm like, yay, I get to serve. I need purpose right now. It's really important. And then over the weekend, somebody that I just love deeply passed away. And actually, it's really kind of, if you give me a moment, a cool story, because I think what we're missing right now is the ability to share our stories because, we're not gathering in our buildings anymore and popping out, hey, what's going on the weekend? And if you don't have a structure for that yet, like you might be sitting here watching these drop-ins, but you're not sharing back and forth. So just a quick share story. He was actually a board member in my first principal job. And I don't know if any of you have ever been principals, but it's really not like the most popular role. I always joke when I go speak, I say I'm actively recruiting for friends because I've been a principal in a small town. So, but anyway, good. So yeah, right. Good man. And so for almost 8 years, this man has still been in my life. And I just, I've been struggling. And so, and my daughters are struggling because, and my husband, because he's a friend to us all and we can't gather right now. So that's, that's real. That's grief. That's real that we're processing in our separate spaces. And that can be really challenging. So I don't know if you're a person who's struggling. The thing that I heard from Brene Brown this morning that really spoke to me, there's a lot, but one of it was like this idea of when we lose somebody, everything cancels. And right now, I know you feel this, Jeff. Everything's canceling. Like, I was set up in April to just go and travel. I think I had like 7 flights, which is the most I've ever had, just to be able to go and like spread my light and give this message. And that's been canceled. And so I just think my real grief right now with this person is a perfect opportunity for me to just remember and gain empathy for the messages that I do share in terms of like, take it easy, be mindful, do what works for you, have some compassion. Because yesterday I didn't want to do a thing. I was a mess. I got my daughters to do a couple hours of work. And beyond that, I was like just stunned, So I think that though, this idea that we're all kind of collectively grieving is huge because things are canceling, weddings are canceling. Our events that we used to put on our calendars to bring us happiness are canceling. And amidst all of that, we're struggling with this line between home and work because now there's no separate space for it anymore. So anyway, I don't know if I actually had any salient points except to say that grief is real. It's not linear, and we're all struggling with grief right this very minute. Yeah, I think just acknowledging that is important.
I think Brene would be very proud with how you presented that. You're good. I'll let her know that you did well.
Oh, would you?
I will. I'll give her a holler after this and let her know.
I think I've asked hundreds of people over the last couple of years. I'm like, do you know Brene Brown? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, give me your number, man. I just want to talk to her.
Well, she's waiting for me to give her a call after. She always likes to know how our drop-ins go in the morning. So I'll let her know that you did well. I do want to read. Dave Schmitto says, Sarah, you are a lifesaver and a life changer from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. I am here because you are you and you listen to that small, still voice. Thank you for always reaching out and sharing your heart.
Thank you, Dave.
Dave's going to make us both cry over here. Jeez. But I'm going to echo that with Dave. You and I connected. I don't even know when we connected. We connected on you came on our podcast
I
on Teach
did.
Better Talk. Which, by the way, if you're listening to Teach Better Talk, go back and find it. I don't remember what episode it was, but teachbetter.com/podcast/Sarah Johnson will get you there. It was a while ago, but anyway, after that, we then got connected with on Voxer, and I don't know whether it was you or me that started back and forth, and you became this. I always joke that you're like my spirit animal, my spiritual guider in so many ways, and we just kind of started checking in with each other, and just sometimes it was daily, and then other times it'd go a week or so before we checked back in, and then we'd go crazy for a day or two because we're like, we gotta make up for it.
Right.
And I think about like and I think you and I discussed this the other day via on Voxer actually, is like not everyone has built that, right? This digital PLN, this digital support system, and not everyone's connected that way. And those people are really potentially really struggling right now because they don't have that outlet. So something we were talking about before we came on was I shared out an article. I can't remember what it's from. I think it was from like a Forbes or Inc. or something like that. And it was more based around like entrepreneurship and business and stuff, but you can totally always flip it. And one of the things was like a morning routine or morning things we think about. One of them was, who are you checking in with? And I think thinking through the people that maybe aren't as connected is a great person to throw on that list. Someone maybe who can't be connected. So that might be, an elderly friend or parent or family member or whatever. But it might also be your friends who who are connected, but maybe just don't have the same relationships. And I think one really neat thing about that is if you're reaching out and you're intentionally connecting to check and see how they're doing, it's going to help you too. Because you're going to have these conversations, whether it's via Vox or whether it's via text, whether you're calling them, doing a video call, whatever, reaching out to people to see, hey, how are you doing? Can we just chat for a few minutes? Because you're probably isolated and bored, and so am I, and let's just check on each other, I think is super important. So I appreciate that. But what is Ray saying? Ray's saying Jeff is such a liar. I'm just going to call her out right now. Jeff is such a liar, but she spelled liar incorrectly. He's not that cool. I wish he was that cool. Someday you will be cool, Jeff. Someday, finger crossed. She also crossed one finger versus that. So you're going to call me out. I'm going to call you out on not spelling and forgetting your S. Go walk your dogs, Ray.
Forgetting your S. Hey, Jeff, I want to pop in and say this, that I do think it's really critical for these connections. And, you saw me get emotional for Dave saying that message. I just appreciate it because this is the kind of stuff that we need to do all the time, not just during the pandemic.
Yes.
So I saw something the other day that said, what are we going to, when we get out of this, what are we going to keep and what are we going to say, goodbye, this goodbye, hello thing to? And that intentionality is something that I've been speaking about for years, and it's something I believe deeply in. And you have been a person that has been, you say that I'm your spirit animal, but I was an educator and a principal. I had never known how to build an email list or, like my podcast and do all these brand new things. And then to be alone, I empathize with you all that are experiencing this on the deepest level because I grieved. I chose to walk away from my position out of a spiritual calling. But for months, I remember my kids and my husband going to school and I was lost. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I don't have the daily interactions. I don't have my purpose in front of me. And so building connections with people like you is what fueled me for the last year and a half. So I grieve that for people who have lost their connections, but I say now, do make those connections. Obviously you're here in the Facebook group, but maybe you're hearing the podcast for the first time and you aren't connected. You're just hearing people. And again, like I said, we crave story and we need to communicate back and forth. So like Voxer is an amazing tool. I know you mentioned it, but that has been a lifesaver for me for several years in moments of isolation. And especially now, it's that human connection back and forth with our voices that really kind of keeps us moving. And so I think we need to be practical, put some of those practical things in place to help our mental well-being right now, but then to serve others too.
And I want to echo your great point about the fact that this should also be a focus even outside of a pandemic and needs to continue. And I really hope that the level of support and pouring out of help and tools and tips and tricks and I'm here for you, whatever you need, continues long after this because it's so important. So Alex jumped in to help, saying that your episode was episode 48. You were like really early on. Wow.
Oh,
That's awesome. So thanks, Alex. Appreciate that. If you are listening on Teach Better Talk podcast right now, make sure you get into the Facebook group, teachbettergroup.com, or get on Facebook and search Teach Better Team, and you'll find our page and you'll find a group. These are going up on our YouTube channel as well, which is just at Teach Better Team, and then going on to the podcast as bonus episodes as well. So like right now, we've got 7 podcast episodes coming out every week. 2 are interviews with awesome educators, and then these 5 bonus episodes based on these drop-ins. So I do want to mention though, just because I'm going to highlight like a time since we're unable to be together. You know, we're social distancing, we're kind of isolated. We did get to meet.
yes, we did.
This past summer. Was it summer? It was summer. No. It was like fall, right? I don't know. When was it?
What day is it?
What's today? Where are we? I don't know what it was. I went to Michigan because it was like the best trip ever, and it was a great conference that I went to, but like the best trip ever because it didn't even have anything to do with the conference. Because on my way up, I got to stop and see Dave Schmidt, who's been commenting in here, and that was the first time Dave and I were able to meet in person. And I don't know how long our cup of coffee was, but it was pretty cold by the time we were done. And then I got to hang out that night with the amazing Allison Apsey. She drove down to see me where I was there just because I was somewhat close to in town. And then just out of the works of God, you happen to be a couple hours away, but sort of on my way home enough to where we were able to carve some time and I think probably have a cup of coffee that was way longer than a cup of coffee would be. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm missing the high five and the hug. I'm not even going to lie. Like,
sure.
So I think it's important to then reach out. He said it was November. Thanks, Dave. Super important for that. So you touched on this, and I think it's really a big thing. We talked about it a little bit before we jumped on live is, you know, your balance message from Balance Like a Pirate is crucial all the time. But I think right now, and you sort of touched on it, I can't remember where you were at when you said it, but that there's this blurred line or no line right now for educators between their now virtual classroom and their home. And this is coming from a lot of different things. One, because they may have kids at home who they're also now trying to guide their education. They may be helping their spouse or other loved ones deal with whatever situation this is putting them in. And then also you have students and parents and families at home that are attempting to learn this way, and they may have to learn at different hours throughout the day, and issues come up at different times. So teachers are sort of always, even more so, always on, always trying to be available and struggling with this. I think even more so than ever, this idea of finding any sort of balance or harmony between the parts of their life, because there is this blurred or non-existent line of when do I stop focusing on my class because I want to be there for them, or as an admin focusing on my staff because I want to be there for them. Like when am I allowed to turn this off and become a husband, a wife, a father, a mother, whatever? Wonder if you could speak to the balance message in these times in that note, and if you have anything for us at all. I'm not sure I know what the answer is.
I have something for you. And the thing is that it's got to be whatever works for you. And that's the way it's always had to be. You know, I know for a fact, one of the things I really try to emphasize is that balance is not 50-50. So don't try to chase that unicorn or whatever you think it is. Like, I know there's so many schedules going out, which is super helpful because that's what we do, right? We're like, we're going to create a template and then we'll share it widely. And and I think there's a few different schools of thought on that. When you see something like that, you're like, oh, I got to jump on because then I should be doing a schedule, right? And then I should be following it. And then all of a sudden there's all this pressure and these breakdowns, like these social emotional issues, or like you said, you're trying to serve and you're trying to, parent your kids and teach your kids and blah, blah, blah. But the idea, or you feel comfort in that because there's a structure and there's a share. But I guess what I want to say is do what works for you. Like the other thing is balance has always, for me, going beyond balance has always been about finding what works best for you in the most satisfying way that it can. And you are going to have to learn to pivot. I said that, I don't know how many times over and over for the last couple of years, is that we've got to learn to pivot. When we have an addition, it changes our life. And when we have a subtraction, it changes our life. And so it's being ever mindful and self-aware. And so a huge part of that, where I think the gift of our balance message comes in, is in the framework of the quadrants. So if you'll just allow me to, I'd love to.
Yeah, do it.
Your listeners. So we
Please.
have Okay, so we have these 4 areas. There's you basically what you do is you take your life and you put it into 4 areas, not trying to do work and life. We're going to look at our personal life is one quadrant area. We're going to look at our positional. That's how you pay the bills. It's the time management, energy management, all of that. Your professional life, it's what we've been talking about, is keeping up these connections, the learning networks, the podcast, the whatever it is to keep yourself growing. And a lot of people are having to do that right now. They're not getting paid anymore to learn how to teach online, right? Like all of these things that you're learning and growing. And then there's your passions. And so that is, it's not about what you do, it's who you are. And I just firmly believe this to the core of my being, is that if whatever season we're in, whatever addition or subtraction we've had now during a pandemic or when we come out, is just being mindful of how we are intentionally immersing ourselves in any one of those. And if we are feeling out of harmony for things that are out of our control or in our control, we can control by becoming intentional, more intentional with each new step. And so if that is, like Jeff said from that article, if that's a personal thing that's reaching out to people and you will make it a thing in your life that you are going to connect intentionally face to face on a Zoom or a Google Hangout or whatever that happens to be once per day meaningfully, then that's a personal connection. It could also be professional, right? But what are you going to do in those 4 areas of your life to try to get some normalcy? And for me, I want to hit this one hard for you, for all of you listening. Your self-care has never been more important than right now. Ever.
Yes.
Ever. I can say that yesterday I woke up and I was depressed. I am so broken over this loss that I've had, right? And then I move through the day and my emotions are off anyway. But when I got out on my run, this wasn't a new thing for me, but it was like day 2090 or something crazy like that. But that's what I needed because, first of all, it's something I had established for a long time. There was some level of normalcy, but I needed to refill myself. I could not sit there and help my child or my children process through their own loss from this family friend and do their math worksheets for the love. And, think about all of the things that I'm trying to create or whatever that is and not refuel myself. Because I could not come back and then for the long haul of all these hours being back in our home and give lovingly on any level if I hadn't poured that sunlight and that breath and that air back into my world. So that for me, it doesn't have to be running. That's what works for me. But you've got to find, even if it's 10 minutes, friends, and not like self-care is and go grab a adult beverage and sit on the deck. I'm saying something that's going to last forever that has meaning. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it is, water intake. Maybe it's silence. It's meditation. I don't care, but it's got to be something that's going to fuel your emotion, your physical, your mental, and you know what I mean? Like the 5 quadrants of self-care, basically.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I do think we can keep a line. And also one more thing. In this framework, I think maybe you don't realize you can put boundaries on your time yet. I mean, maybe it's been only a week that you've been online learning and you're trying to find this adjustment, but you can still put boundaries on your time. You can still say, I'm only going to check emails during this 1 hour period 4 or 5 times a day. And you can communicate that with staff. You can take care of yourself and set that boundary to students and say, I'm going to be checking my email during this time. Catch me here. Maybe you haven't been guided for that structure from your local district, but you can do that for yourself and for your own sanity. And maybe you can't stick to a schedule that has craft time or whatever with your kids. That's okay. Like loosen it up a little bit and figure out what works for your family.
That's been a big one for me as a parent.
Yeah.
A parent who happens to work with teachers all the time. And so I've had a lot of friends and family that have reached out to me asking me for advice and, which is great and doing everything I can to connect with whom I can. But one of the things that I did is I set up a schedule for how we were going to operate. And, I had time set aside for when the kids were up and when they were doing schoolwork, when they had free time and all these different things. And then I immediately got so fixated on the fact that I had to do that exactly how I laid it out that my anxiety was just through the roof. And like yesterday morning, like I'm kind of running, I'm getting things going, and my wife looks at me and like Amy's still essential, so she's still working. And she's going out the door and she says, "Hey," she's like, "it's okay if you don't get to all the schoolwork. Like they're gonna be fine." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." She's like, "No, seriously, like it's okay if you gotta work and you can't manage them because my daughter being in kindergarten requires a little bit extra helping hand during her time." So we're still trying to figure out that balance of it. Do they need to be doing schoolwork during the day? So it's more like when they were in school, or is it okay to do it later when we're both home? We're able to do that. So I need to adjust my schedule and just do that. One of the big things was me adjusting to the fact of when I do decide it's school time for them, I need to turn off work time so that I can just be fully there and fully present for them, helping them with school, and not worrying about how I'm bouncing back and forth and getting interrupted during work. And that was a big thing, sort of yesterday realization. But you're right, about like, because I went and found all the schedules and all the ideas and all the different things to put in place. I'm like, oh, I'm connected. I know I'm in this world. I can go find all these resources. We'll be okay. And I'm like, holy cow. Like, no, because I'm also trying to still, run the business and support and stuff like that. So, it's just a crucially important message. And the turning off and having that. And I want to read here a couple of things that came in. One was, oh my gosh, it's Sarah Johnson. That was Neil Gupta. Shout out for us. Kimberly says, it was really tough the first 2 weeks, but week 3 seems to be balancing out a little bit better. That's awesome. Kimberly, really excited about that. Adam said, creating office hours has been so helpful for me. It allows me to be present for students, but if I do extra, I know I can stop without guilt. I think that's huge, and speaks to what Sarah was just talking about. So that's great. Here's a great one for you. Joe, our good friend Joe, says, wow, didn't know Sarah Johnson, who she was before. Love what she's saying about can't wait to connect. There you go. That's what I was hoping for. Some people get to meet you and have that connection. So that's awesome, Joe. And Alex V with a great point. Our children will remember how we helped them manage emotions more than how we helped with a worksheet. That is huge. And yes, amen, Alex. That was huge. And that's been a big thing. I actually saw something this morning. I can't remember where I was reading it at, and I don't know whether I shared it or not. Was something about just any way you can journal on with your kids right now. Whether that's having them write, whether that's having them do a video, whether it's having them speaking, whether interview them, whatever. Talking with them through how they're feeling through this and their lens, and then also having them ask you questions and recording that all, because this is history. This is like we're literally living through something that they're going to talk about for either the rest of, or at least a good part of their life, right? About the time that the world was shutting down and we didn't go to school anymore and we didn't leave our houses and we couldn't see our friends and they didn't play professional sports and the Olympics moved and all these different things. Like our kids have this opportunity. And I saw that. So I've been thinking now this morning, okay, how do I want to do that? I think I'm going to do video because my kids are adorable on video and that'll be a lot of fun to watch back and see how they're doing that. But which, speaking of video, I'm going way back here, talking about like just the connections and actually touching on the emotion stuff is yesterday my son got to do his first they did a Google Meet hangout with his teacher and all of his classmates, and all but 2 of the classmates were there, so basically his whole class. And he wasn't really excited about it. He's like, do I really have to? Because like I made him get dressed. I'm like, you can keep your PJ bottoms on, just put a shirt on, dude. Because he sleeps like dad. He doesn't like to wear a shirt to bed. So he's like, can I just go like this? I'm like, no, you can't just go like that. You need to put a shirt on. So I got him set up here on my computer. He had his gaming headset on, connect in, and he just kind of like, his face was like, and then I clicked him in, and like 3 of his friends were on time, and he literally went from this to just beaming. And like I watched it, and like I'm getting like emotional right now because like what I saw in him, my heart just lit up. And I'm like, oh, like I'm so happy right now. And they were on for about 30 minutes or so. She ran like a sort of like their normal morning check-in. They did sharing and everyone got to talk. And then he kept talking and he started talking more than he had been. And I'm like, I don't think his teacher's on the video anymore. And so I stuck back over, and it's just him and 3 of the kids just stayed on for another 20 minutes, just talking and laughing. And it was such a cool just moment. And that's that emotional point. Like that's the most important thing right now. And I posted about it on Instagram and stuff about the fact that like this is what's really crucial. So give yourself grace for all the other stuff. If you focus on how are you taking care of the kids, how are you connect with them and allowing them to connect with each other. And from an admin standpoint, if you're focusing on how you're supporting your staff, how you're helping them connect and help them feel supported as well. And from an all-around point, how are we doing that for our families and then for our friends and everything? Like that's the most important part right now. we'll get to the content. The content will be there. They'll get what they need. We'll get them caught up when we need to, when we get back to, whatever that new normal looks like, and we'll find the gaps and we can fill them. But right now, the emotional piece, and like you said, and you voice it so well, that your self-care is more important now than ever. And so is your care for others and the emotional and that connection and stuff. So I want to just echo that there. Someone else jumping in. Who was this?
Probably Ray making fun of you for saying you sleep with your shirt off.
What's that?
Probably Ray making fun of you for saying you sleep.
No, actually, it isn't. Although that would be very accurate. It's actually Megan. Megan saying she saw this today. We've already taught our students 2 important lessons. We show up for them even when it's hard, and that we love them enough to be here. Ooh, that's powerful right there. Yeah. That it is like that's the. And we keep talking through that, like, and Alex touched on, like, our children are going to remember that. They're going to remember that we're showing up for them, both as parents and family members, but also as educators, as admins, everything. They're going to remember that we're showing up for them, and that we're here, that we're going out of our way because we love them. And your staff's the same way. Your friends and family are the same way. Like, it goes so far beyond just the 4 walls that are now virtual, right? So that's really important. I love that. Thanks for sharing that there, Megan. And good morning, Megan. Good morning, Chuck. I see Chuck jumped in, so good morning to you. Brienne saying she loves that message. I want to touch really quick on some of the things that we have been working really hard on the team to create things and do things. Obviously, we're doing these daily drop-ins here in our private Facebook group, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central Time. Or, geez, I keep saying p.m. a.m., 8 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Central Time. Monday through Friday. They are then being saved here in the group. You can go to the videos. They're being put on our YouTube page. And they're also then being released on Teach Better Talk podcast as a bonus episode. So if you listen to this on a podcast and you want to interact, or if you're watching this on YouTube and you want to interact live, the best way to do that is obviously get into the Facebook group, teachbettergroup.com, or just go onto Facebook and search Teach Better Team. You can get in here, so you'd have an ability to ask someone like Sarah a question and engage with her and everything like that. So that's where you need to be. We're also continuing to do the things that we've always done. So 4 blog posts a week going out right now. Our amazing writers are shifting so much of their focus onto the current state of things and things that we really think are going to help with a lot of the shift to remote learning and distance learning and things like that. We still have Master Chat going on every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time. We are also shifting the topics and the focuses of those chats with our moderators to be focused on the current state as well. Tomorrow, Thursday, being led by our own Chad Ostrowski, talking there as well. We have a new course that was put out, led by Ray Hewitt, which is just all about it's supporting a virtual classroom. A lot of great general tips and ideas, but also a lot of tactical takeaways you can take and help you focus on the right things and look for the right tools to support your staff. We've got a whole bunch of new downloads that our teams all come together to create. So things like a distance learning checklist, do's and don'ts of that, utilizing SEL through COVID-19, weekly distance learning planning templates, just a whole bunch. We're constantly creating. Megan Deegan has done some amazing tutorials on things like Flipgrid, GimKit. We got a Weebly one coming out soon, and quizzes and a few others. So the team's working really hard. Everything's over at teachbetter.com for that. But we're going to continue doing these live drop-ins and trying to bring in awesome people like Sarah to talk and just share your different vantage point on things and viewpoint and stuff. I got a few more comments coming in. Dave says, yes, give students a chance to hear you and see you. The learning that matters most cannot be found in a textbook. The reason so many people feel connected with the two of you is because you are in our ears every week. That is what we need to encourage each other to do right now. Thank you, Dave. That's awesome. Appreciate that. Kimberly says, yes, with a whole bunch of exclamation points. Show up, care, and flexible, and be flexible. So that's a huge piece. That's what you're talking about, that pivot. You got to be able to pivot. You got to be able to be flexible. And I think giving yourself grace is a huge piece of that. Like, you got to be able to give a grace. Go, oh, that didn't work as well. Let me try this now. Mm-hmm. Who's saying this? Brianne's saying, join a mastery chat if you haven't already. Time well spent. Teachers are connected. We love our mastery chat. There's such a great chance for people to connect as well. So thanks for that reminder, Brianne, there as well. Sarah, I want to make sure someone who's maybe just jumping into the video now, or maybe has been listening for a while and forgot when we talked about it at the beginning, ways in which we can connect with you and consume the things that you're putting out and hear your messages and stuff. What are the best ways for us to connect?
Well, I am at Sarah, SarahSA Johnson On every social media platform. That's not true. I'm not in like Pinterest and stuff like that. So it's just okay. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. You can find me at Voxer at that same handle. I've
Hmm.
got a Facebook page. And same with the email there. It's super easy. Sarah Johnson at gmail.com. I haven't totally pivoted yet to put out a bunch of resources, but I'm going to do a webinar tomorrow specific
Okay.
on self-care, and I have put that out there. I'll put it out there again. It's through a regional thing that we have going on here in Wisconsin, but they've opened it up to everybody. So I'll be doing a specific webinar on self-care that has a little bit more content than I was able to get to today. But yeah, I'll be doing
Do you
my
have a
best.
site? Do you have a site we can go to find that? Where's the best way? Is just
I'll tweet it out.
okay?
It's
So
so
connecting with you on Twitter is the best way to find that and get that. What time's that happening tomorrow?
it's going to be 2 p.m. Central, and then
Okay.
they will archive it. But I'm
Okay.
also working on some resources myself, Jeff, for listeners, for community, for everybody. But also, I have a podcast. We didn't even really talk about that. We alluded to
Yeah,
it.
let's do that right now. Let's talk about the podcast. I was waiting for you to mention the website, which is the podcast and everything like that. So
Yes.
yes, talk about the podcast for us.
Right. So I have a podcast that I pop out weekly. And just this week, if you're listening to this fresh, I had Huda Isa, and she is a
Nice.
really wonderful leader in the Michigan. But really, she teaches about cultural equity, diversity. We have such a great conversation. But I have launched, Ray was on there, Tiffany. I think I've had 67 wonderful conversations that I've put out there, and every single week I do. So I have a series coming up called In Awe of Champions, where I've got several people talking about how they're championing still, even in the midst of this pandemic. So I'm excited about that. So I hope you'll join me on the In Awe podcast, which stands for Amplifying Women and Empowering the Community.
I love it. What's the website?
InAweToRise.com.
So make sure you follow Sarah. Go to the website. Like Ray mentioned right off the start that she loves listening to the podcast during her morning walks with the dogs. And it really does. It's such a great way to raise voices and do exactly what you're trying to do, which is empowering women and raising their voices. So please make sure that you connect with Sarah and reaching out. I can attest to the fact that she's always ready to help and always ready to have a good conversation. If you need to get deep and have that conversation, she's a great spot for that. But also, if you just need to goof around and joke around, she's also great for that too. So I love you to death, Sarah. I consider myself so fortunate for us to connect. I'm so happy that you're able to come on with me this morning too. So really appreciate everyone who chimed in, everyone who's been dropping in on these every day. The guests that have been coming on have been phenomenal. Tomorrow, I've got a really awesome guest coming in too. If you don't know, John Sowash is just a phenomenal educator. He is like the man when it comes to Chromebooks. So if you're doing anything with Chromebooks or anything sort of related to that, tomorrow you do not want to miss the drop-in. I'm going to be drilling John on all of his things. He's putting out ridiculous amounts of resources right now. His YouTube channel is just incredibly valuable right now with everything that he puts out. So, and he's a podcaster as well. So tomorrow morning I've got John Sowash with us. So definitely hope you jump in there. And then we're going to continue to do this. We're going to have several guests on throughout the weeks. And we're going to continue these drop-ins until you tell us to stop doing them. So I hope you do that.
Hey Jeff, before we sign off, can I give your listeners just one I think is so key?
Yes.
Okay. If you haven't already done this, put a boundary on how much you're consuming on your phone. And this has been true since always, but now do not let the first thing you do in the morning be to pop on your phone and check what everyone else has to say in this world. We want to be connected. We should be connected. We should be communicating. We should be knowing what's going on. But I cannot emphasize this enough, that finding a different routine in the morning and not popping on and giving someone else the key to the tone set for your morning, again, has never been more critical. So do something that feeds your soul, your passion, your spirit, whether that's reading, whether it's journaling, whether it's exercising, it's silence, all of them. The Miracle Morning is a really wonderful way to start your day. But please, please, please fight that addiction to the phone in the morning so that you're filling yourself up with something beautiful and true and real, and not someone else's, whether it's email or news or whatever. Just please take some time for yourself in the morning before you start to take those steps forward for your day.
Super important message. I'm going to ruin it because I have to make jokes. But what if you're what fills up my spirit and I have to connect with you on my phone, Sarah?
I mean, then that's what's good and real and true in your world, then do it. But
That is so important. I know I had to make the joke, but I wanted
fair
to make
enough.
you laugh, and it worked, so I'm okay with it.
But it
But
might be
that
a podcast or a spiritual podcast for somebody, whatever. What I guess what I'm trying to say is don't get on the news feed. Don't get
yes,
on
don't
the,
go right into the thing
you
where
know,
you. Yes,
yeah,
but I love the idea of like make sure you're making the right decision of how you're going to set your tone for the day. Like that's
yeah,
so important. You're right. That's important, like you said, far beyond any pandemic, but right now, so important is make sure that you're in control of how you're. I can't. You said it better than I did, but that you're in control of how the tone of your day is going to be set. How are you? How is the rest of it going to go?
yeah,
And if it is just logging in to see what everybody else is, maybe complaining about isolation, or again with the news and how bad is it getting, that's going to set the tone for a bad way. Where you can consume that information so you stay informed. After you've set the right tone, you're going to receive it differently and you're
yeah.
going to process it differently. So that is super important. I have a couple last minute comments I want to throw out. Tammy says she just subscribed to your podcast.
Yay.
You should get Tammy
Tammy, communicate with me. I'd love to have you on the podcast.
Neil says I need to go back and watch this. Two people who inspire me. Neil, you inspire me. Eric Guy, hey, good morning, Eric. Eric jumped on, said good morning, Jeff and SJ. And Neil Gupta said I'd like a daily drop in sing along with Sarah instead of checking my phone. So we'll work on that, Neil.
Happening.
We'll see what we can do. But I appreciate you, Sarah. I appreciate everyone jumping in. We'll be back tomorrow. Check in with us every day. And if you're listening on podcast, make sure you jump into the Teach Better group on Facebook and get involved in this conversation. The group's amazing place, even outside of these live videos. But you can get them all here as well and get into the conversation every morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Central Time. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Sarah, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank
And
you.
everyone, have an amazing day. Find your set a boundary, find your balance, and reach out if you need anything at all. We appreciate you.